Chapter 1: The Angel in the Corridor. The hospital corridor smelled of antiseptic and despair. Fluorescent lights hummed above, casting a pale glow on the cracked linoleum. The air was heavy, thick with grief, as though sorrow itself had seeped into the walls. Nurses moved briskly, their shoes squeaking against the floor, but their faces betrayed exhaustion. I sat there, beside her. A mother whose child had just died. Her sobs shook the corridor, reverberating like thunder in a storm. She clutched at her chest as though trying to hold her heart together, but it kept breaking, piece by piece, with every breath. Her hand was cold, trembling, desperate. I held it, not knowing if my warmth could reach her, but unwilling to let go. I whispered prayers, words that felt inadequate but were all I had. I wiped her tears, stayed until dawn, my own body aching from exhaustion but unwilling to leave her alone. She once told me I was her angel. Her voice cracked, gratitude spilling from her lips. You are the only one who stayed. You are my angel. I believed her. I believed that kindness was a bond, that empathy was a bridge. That night stretched endlessly. The clock ticked, but time felt suspended. Every sob was a wave crashing against me, pulling me deeper into her grief. I whispered verses I had learned as a child, prayers my mother had taught me, words meant to soothe the soul when nothing else could. I stroked her hair, whispered that she was not alone, that her child's spirit was at peace. She clung to me, her nails digging into my skin, as though I were the only anchor keeping her from drowning. When dawn finally broke, the corridor was bathed in pale light. Her sobs had quieted into whimpers, her body exhausted from grief. She looked at me with hollow eyes and whispered again, "You are my angel." I carried those words with me for years. They became a badge of honor, proof that kindness mattered, that empathy could heal. But years later, when I was the one grieving, she walked past me as if I were invisible. It was my turn to sit in that corridor, my turn to feel the weight of loss pressing down on my chest. My sobs shook the walls, just as hers had. My hands trembled, reaching for comfort, for a hand to hold. She was there. She saw me. Our eyes met. For a moment, I thought she would come, that she would remember the night I stayed with her, the prayers I whispered, the tears I wiped. But she turned away. She walked past me, her steps brisk, her face cold. No hand reached for mine. No prayer was whispered. No angel appeared. I was alone. Her betrayal cut deeper than any wound. It was not just neglect, it was erasure. She erased me, erased the bond we had shared, erased the kindness I had given. I realized then that kindness is not a merry-go-round. It does not spin back to you simply because you pushed it forward. It is a currency that others spend freely but rarely repay. I had given her everything that night, my time, my strength, my compassion. And when I needed even a fraction of it in return, she gave me nothing. Months later, I heard she lost another loved one. Another child, another piece of her heart. This time, no one stayed with her. The corridor was empty. The silence was her companion. She sat alone, sobbing, reaching for a hand that never came. The nurses moved briskly, the lights hummed, but no one stopped. No angel appeared. Chapter 2: The Defender at Work. The tribunal room was cold, filled with whispers of judgment. The air itself seemed hostile, heavy with suspicion, as though every breath carried accusation. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, their harsh glare illuminating the faces of those gathered, faces twisted with doubt, disdain, and quiet anticipation of someone's downfall. My colleague sat trembling, accused of incompetence, his career dangling by a thread. His hands shook as he shuffled papers he could no longer read. Sweat beaded on his forehead, his lips quivered, and his eyes darted around the room like a trapped animal searching for escape. I stood for him. I argued for his humanity, his potential, his dignity. My words carried weight, not because I was powerful, but because I believed in him. I reminded the tribunal that mistakes were not the measure of a man, that growth was possible, that compassion was necessary. I spoke with conviction, my voice steady, my heart resolute. The room shifted. The whispers quieted. The tribunal listened. And in the end, he was reinstated. He thanked me, eyes wet with relief. He promised loyalty, swore he would stand by me if ever I fell. His words were heavy with sincerity, his gratitude palpable. I believed him. In the days that followed, he clung to me like a brother. He told others how I had saved him, how my defense had restored his dignity. He called me his guardian, his advocate, his friend. I accepted his words, believing that loyalty was born in moments of crisis, that bonds forged in fire could not be broken. I carried his promise with me, tucked away like a shield. I thought, if ever I am accused, if ever I falter, he will stand for me as I stood for him. But later, when I was accused, he testified against me. The tribunal room was the same, cold, hostile, filled with whispers. But this time, I was the one trembling, my career dangling by a thread. My hands shook, my lips quivered, my eyes darted around the room, searching for escape. And he stood. Not for me, but against me. His voice, once trembling with gratitude, now rang with betrayal. He spoke of my supposed failures, my alleged incompetence. He painted me as reckless, irresponsible, unworthy. My defense had saved him, but his betrayal condemned me. The tribunal listened. The whispers grew louder. And in the end, I was disgraced. His betrayal was not the only one. Others joined him, colleagues I had once defended, friends I had once shielded. I remembered the time I had spoken up for a junior employee accused of negligence. I had argued that she was inexperienced, that she needed guidance, not punishment. She had thanked me profusely, promising eternal gratitude. Yet when I was accused, she sat silently, her eyes avoiding mine, her lips sealed. I remembered the time I had covered for a manager who had made a costly mistake. I had taken the blame, shielding him from humiliation. He had called me noble, selfless, a true leader. Yet when I was accused, he joined the chorus of condemnation, eager to protect himself at my expense. Each betrayal was a knife, cutting deeper, leaving scars that no kindness could heal. What hurt most was not the accusations, but the silence of those who had once praised me. Silence is betrayal in disguise. It is the refusal to stand, the refusal to speak, the refusal to remember. I realized then that loyalty is fragile, promises are fleeting, and gratitude is temporary. People remember kindness only when it serves them. When it costs them, they forget. Months later, his dishonesty was exposed. The same tribunal that once reinstated him now dismissed him permanently. His credibility shattered, his career ended. I heard whispers of his downfall, the same whispers that had once condemned me. I heard of his disgrace, his isolation, his despair. Karma had come, not as vengeance, but as revelation. He faced the consequences of his betrayal, the emptiness of his dishonesty, the weight of his disloyalty. Chapter 3: Memories of Betrayal. The betrayals accumulated like stones in a sack, each one heavier than the last, dragging me down until I could no longer walk in the light. I retreated into shadows, not because I loved them, but because they were honest. Shadows do not pretend to be warm, they do not promise loyalty. They simply exist, silent and steady, unlike the people who had consumed my kindness and discarded me. I remembered the hospital corridor, the woman whose sobs shook the walls. I had stayed until dawn, whispering prayers, holding her hand. She had called me her angel. Years later, when grief consumed me, she walked past me as if I were invisible. That memory replayed often, each time sharper, each time colder. I remembered the tribunal room, the colleague trembling under accusation. I had defended him, restored his dignity. He had promised loyalty, sworn he would stand by me. Later, when I was accused, he testified against me. His betrayal condemned me. That memory replayed too, a bitter echo of promises broken. And there were smaller betrayals, countless and relentless. The friend who borrowed money and never repaid it. The neighbor who accepted food during famine but mocked me during feast. The colleague who praised my generosity in private but ridiculed me in public. Each memory was a scar, a reminder that kindness had been exploited. Even in the shadows, they came. Office workers, colleagues, acquaintances, faces I knew too well. They came asking for kindness, for help, for support. One afternoon, a woman approached me, her voice trembling. "Could you help me draft this report? You're so good with words." I looked at her, remembering the time she had laughed when I was accused, her voice joining the chorus of condemnation. I smiled, but it was not the smile of compassion. It was sarcasm wrapped in politeness. "Of course," I said, my tone sweet but sharp. "I'll help you, just as you helped me when I was drowning in accusations." Her face flushed, her eyes darted away. She mumbled thanks, but the weight of my words lingered. Another day, a man came, desperate. "Could you cover for me in the meeting?" "I'm not prepared." I remembered him too, the one who had testified against me, the one whose betrayal had condemned me. I leaned back, folded my arms, and let sarcasm drip from my voice. "Certainly," I said. "I'll defend you again, just as I did before. And perhaps, when the tables turn, you'll condemn me again. It seems to be your specialty." He stammered, his confidence crumbling. He muttered apologies, but I waved them away, my smile cutting deeper than any blade. Sarcasm became my armor. It was not cruelty, it was justice. Each sarcastic remark was a mirror, forcing them to see their betrayal reflected back at them. I gave them the help they asked for, but I reminded them of the help they had denied me. They squirmed under my words, uncomfortable, ashamed. Some avoided me afterward, unwilling to face the reflection of their own disloyalty. Others persisted, desperate for my kindness, even when it came wrapped in sarcasm. The office became a theater of irony. "Could you review my presentation?" one asked. "Of course," I replied. "I'll polish your words, just as you polished the accusations against me." "Could you mentor me?" another pleaded. "Gladly," I said. "I'll guide you, just as you guided the tribunal to believe I was incompetent." Each conversation was a performance, each act of kindness laced with reminders of betrayal. They wanted my help, but they could not escape the truth of their actions. I felt sarcastic, yes, but also liberated. For the first time, I was not blind. I saw their desperation, their dependence, their hypocrisy. They needed me, but I did not need them. I gave them kindness, but on my terms. I gave them help, but with reminders. I gave them support, but with sarcasm. It was my way of reclaiming power, of turning betrayal into strength. Those who had exploited me began to falter without my support. The woman who mocked me struggled with her reports, her credibility crumbling. The man who testified against me stumbled in meetings, his reputation fading. The friend who borrowed money faced financial ruin, his debts consuming him. They had thrived on my kindness, but without it, they faltered. Their betrayals returned to them, not as punishment from me, but as consequences of their own actions. I watched from the shadows, not with malice, but with clarity. Chapter 4: The Silence of Shadows. The nights of solitude were long, but they were honest. In the silence, I heard whispers, not from others, but from within. Doubt crept in, asking if I had been wrong to retreat, if I had been selfish to guard my strength. Yet alongside doubt came clarity. The shadows did not lie. They did not demand. They simply existed, and in their quiet, I began to console myself. I whispered to my own heart, "You are enough. You are strong. You will rise." These words, once reserved for others, became my own balm. Self-consolation was awkward at first, but it grew into a discipline. I lit candles, brewed tea, and sat with my thoughts. I journaled, pouring grief and hope onto paper. I walked alone, feeling the rhythm of my steps as proof that I was still moving forward. But my withdrawal did not go unnoticed. Friends, if they could still be called that, began to mock me. At lunch one day, a former confidant leaned across the table, her voice dripping with sarcasm. So, you've become selfish now? Guarding your time, guarding your energy. What happened to the old you, the one who gave freely? I looked at her, remembering the times I had defended her, comforted her, carried her burdens. My smile was calm, but my words cut. The old me was a martyr. The new me is alive. You should try it sometime. She blinked, taken aback, her laughter faltering. The jab she had intended bounced back, sharper than she expected. Another colleague chimed in during a meeting. You've changed. You don't help as much as you used to. People say you're distant, cold. I leaned forward, my voice steady. Cold? Perhaps. But tell me, where were you when I was burning? Where were you when I was consumed by flames of betrayal? If distance protects me, then I'll keep it. The room fell silent. His jab had turned into his own indictment. They tried often, these so-called friends, to isolate me, to shame me for my change. Why don't you join us anymore? One asked. Because I prefer honesty, I replied. And honesty is rare in your company. You're selfish now, another accused. No, I said, smiling. I'm selective. There's a difference. Selfishness is hoarding what you don't need. Selectiveness is protecting what you cannot afford to lose. Their words were meant to wound, but I turned them into lessons. Each jab became an opportunity to teach them the consequence of betrayal. One evening, a group confronted me directly. You used to be our rock, one said. You used to defend us, another added. You used to comfort us, a third chimed in. I listened, calm, patient. Then I spoke. Yes, I used to. And when I needed a rock, where were you? When I needed defense, who stood for me? When I needed comfort, who came? You took, but you did not give. You consumed, but you did not replenish. And now you call me selfish? No. I call it survival. Their faces fell, their voices faltered. The truth was undeniable. Slowly, their selfishness began to isolate them. Without my support, they faltered. Their projects failed, their reputations crumbled, their friendships dissolved. Chapter 5, New Relations. New personality, new relations. It is a quiet rising, a deliberate guarding of strength, like holding a golden egg in trembling hands. Fragile, precious, irreplaceable. I carried my strength this way, no longer pouring it out recklessly, no longer giving it to those who had consumed me whole. With time, new people entered my life, colleagues, acquaintances, even strangers who saw me not as a resource to exploit but as a person to respect. They admired my resilience, my clarity, my guarded kindness. They did not demand, they asked. They did not consume, they shared. One young colleague approached me after a meeting. I've watched how you handle pressure, she said softly. Could you mentor me? I want to learn, but I don't want to drain you. Her humility touched me. I agreed, but cautiously. I will guide you, I said, but understand, my kindness is not endless. It is directed only to the worthy. She nodded, grateful, and I saw in her eyes sincerity, not entitlement. But those who had betrayed me watched from the sidelines, envious. They saw my new relationships, my victories, my guarded strength, and they seethed. She thinks she's better than us now, one whispered. She's selfish, arrogant, another muttered. She'll fall again, a third sneered. Their envy was palpable, their entitlement glaring. They believed they still had a claim on me, that my strength belonged to them, that my victories should be theirs. They tried to manipulate me, to set me up for failure. One day, a former colleague who had testified against me approached with false sweetness. We're organizing a project, he said. We'd love for you to lead. You're so strong, so capable. I saw through him. The project was a trap, designed to overload me, to make me stumble. I smiled, my voice calm but sharp. Thank you, I said. But I no longer lead projects for those who betray me. Find another victim. His face fell, his plan crumbled. Another time, a group tried to exclude me from critical information, hoping I would fail in a presentation. But I had prepared thoroughly, relying on my own research, my own clarity. When the day came, I delivered flawlessly. Their sabotage dissolved into their own embarrassment. They confronted me, their voices dripping with resentment. You've changed, one accused. Yes, I replied. I've changed into someone who no longer allows parasites to feed on her energy. You think you're untouchable, another spat. No, I said. I know I'm touchable. But I also know I'm unbreakable. And that terrifies you. Their attempts at revenge only revealed their weakness. They wanted me to fail, but each attempt became their downfall. Slowly, karma revealed itself. The colleague who tried to trap me in the project was later exposed for incompetence. His career faltered, his reputation shattered. The group who excluded me from information faced scrutiny when their own work collapsed under poor preparation. Their credibility dissolved, their envy consuming them. Each betrayal returned to them, not as punishment from me, but as consequence of their own actions. They lost their grip, starved of my energy, while I thrived. My victories were not grand gestures, they were steady, deliberate. Each success was a reminder that betrayal cannot destroy resilience. Each triumph was proof that guarded kindness is stronger than blind giving. I rose, not with arrogance, but with clarity. I rose, not to prove them wrong, but to prove myself right. I rose, carrying my golden egg of strength, guarding it fiercely, directing it only to the worthy. And when they look at me now, they see not the victim they once exploited, but the victor they cannot defeat. Chapter 6: Strange Interactions, New Lessons. One morning, as I walked to work, I saw a young man struggling with heavy boxes outside a shop. His face was flushed, his arms trembling. In the past, I would have rushed to help without thought. But now, I paused. Do you need help? I asked. He looked up, surprised. Yes, please. Just one box. I don't want to burden you. His humility struck me. He did not demand, he did not assume. He asked, gently, respectfully. I lifted one box, carried it inside, and set it down. Thank you, he said, his gratitude sincere. I didn't expect anyone to stop. I smiled. Kindness is not endless. But today, you deserved it. That moment was different. It was not exploitation. It was reciprocity. His respect made my kindness worthwhile. In the past, kindness had been blind. I gave to those who mocked me, defended those who betrayed me, comforted those who abandoned me. My kindness was consumed, leaving me empty. Now, kindness was guarded. I asked myself, does this person deserve my help? Will they honor it, or consume it? These questions became my compass. The contrast was stark. Where once I was drained, now I was replenished. Where once I was exploited, now I was respected. But not everyone accepted my new kindness. Those who had betrayed me returned, trying to guilt me into blind giving again. One afternoon, a former colleague approached, his voice dripping with entitlement. You've changed, he said. You don't help us anymore. You're selfish. I looked at him calmly. Selfishness is hoarding what you don't need. I am protecting what I cannot afford to lose. There's a difference. He frowned, frustrated. We need you. You can't just abandon us. I smiled, but my words were sharp. You abandoned me first. And now you face the consequence of betrayal. My kindness is no longer yours to consume. His attempt at manipulation failed. Another time, a group tried to guilt me during a meeting. You used to defend us, one said. Yes, I replied. And when I needed defense, you condemned me. That was your choice. Now, this is mine. Their faces fell, their voices faltered. They could not pierce my boundaries. New interactions became lessons in discernment. A junior employee asked, "Could you review my work? I want to improve." I nodded. Yes, because you ask with humility. But understand, my time is precious. Respect it. Another stranger said, "Could you guide me? I admire your strength." I smiled. I will guide you, but only if you honor the guidance. Kindness is not free, it requires respect. Each conversation was a reminder, kindness must be intentional, not automatic. Those who tried to manipulate me, their guilt tactics failed, their entitlement crumbled, their revenge dissolved. They had thrived on my blind giving, but without it, they faltered. Meanwhile, those who respected my boundaries thrived. The young man with the boxes grew stronger, grateful for small kindnesses. The junior employee improved, her humility rewarded. The stranger who admired my strength learned, his respect reciprocated. I learned, is not about giving endlessly. It is about giving wisely. It is not about martyrdom. It is about discernment. But when strangers ask with humility, when colleagues respect my boundaries, when friends honor my strength. Chapter 7, The Steady Conviction of a New Personality. When I finally spoke again, it was not with the meekness of the past. My voice carried conviction, steady and unshaken, like a river that had found its course. I no longer trembled under the weight of others' expectations. I no longer bent beneath the guilt of being called selfish. I spoke because I had learned that silence protects, but voice liberates. The woman I had become was different. She was deliberate, cautious, but also radiant with clarity. My kindness was no longer blind, it was intentional. My empathy was no longer endless, it was balanced. My boundaries were no longer weaknesses, they were shields. Friends, colleagues, even strangers noticed the change. Some admired it, whispering that I had grown stronger. Others resented it, clinging to the old version of me, the one they could exploit. They tried to pull me back into martyrdom, but I stood firm. In meetings, I began to speak openly about the balance of empathy and boundaries. Kindness, I said, is not about giving endlessly. It is about giving wisely. Empathy without boundaries is exploitation. Boundaries without empathy are cruelty. Balance is survival. Some listened, nodding, their eyes wide with understanding. They saw the truth in my words, the wisdom in my conviction. They began to practice it themselves, guarding their strength, directing their kindness intentionally. Others resisted. They scoffed, mocked, dismissed me. "You've become cold," one said. "No," I replied calmly. "I've become clear. And clarity is not cold, it is peace." "You're selfish," another accused. "No," I said firmly. "I am self-aware. And self-awareness is not selfishness, it is survival." Those who resisted clung to old exploitation. They wanted me to return to blind giving, to endless sacrifice, to martyrdom. They tried to guilt me, shame me, manipulate me. One colleague sneered during a discussion. "You think boundaries make you strong? They make you weak. People will leave you." I looked at him steadily. If people leave because I protect myself, then they were never mine to begin with. Boundaries do not drive away the worthy, they drive away the parasites. Another friend tried to guilt me over coffee. "You used to be so generous. Now you're guarded. It's sad." I smiled, my voice calm but sharp. Sadness is giving until you collapse. Peace is giving wisely. I choose peace. Their resistance revealed their dependence. They had thrived on my blind kindness, but without it, they faltered. I thrived. My boundaries protected me, my discernment guided me, my conviction sustained me. I grew stronger, happier, more peaceful. I began to speak with conviction in every interaction. Kindness is not weakness, I told a group. It is strength, when directed wisely. Boundaries are not cruelty, they are clarity. And clarity is survival. Some resisted, scoffing. You're arrogant, one said. No, I replied. I am confident. And confidence is not arrogance, it is peace of mind. Others listened, learning, growing. They began to guard their own strength, to direct their own kindness intentionally. They thanked me, calling me a teacher, a guide, a survivor. My new personality was not arrogance, it was conviction. It was the recognition that boundaries are right for my well-being, my happiness, my peace of mind. Chapter 8, I Still Stand Tall. My kindness was no longer a currency to be spent recklessly, it was a treasure, guarded, intentional, and directed only to the worthy. Yet the world still tried to consume me. I remembered them all. Each betrayal was a scar, but each scar was also a lesson. I carried them not as wounds but as reminders. They had shaped me, sharpened me, reborn me. My conviction was undeniable, my strength unshaken. They saw that I was no longer the martyr they had consumed. They saw that I was thriving, while they faltered. One by one, they came with apologies. The mother from the hospital corridor approached me, her eyes heavy with regret. I was wrong, she whispered. You stayed with me when no one else did. And when you needed me, I abandoned you. I see now the emptiness of my neglect. Forgive me. I looked at her calmly. Forgiveness is not mine to give, it is yours to earn. But I accept your realization. That is your karma. The colleague from the tribunal came too, his voice trembling. I betrayed you, he admitted. I testified against you, consumed your defense, and condemned you. Now I see the consequence. My career is gone, my credibility shattered. I was wrong. Forgive me. I smiled, but my words were sharp. Your downfall was your own doing. My forgiveness is not necessary, your realization is. Friends who had mocked me came, their voices softer, their arrogance gone. We called you selfish, one said. We mocked your boundaries. But now we see, we were wrong. I nodded. Boundaries are not selfishness, they are survival. You mocked what you did not understand. Now you understand. Not all apologized. Some resisted, clinging to old exploitation. They tried to guilt me, shame me, manipulate me. They tried to set me up for failure, hoping to reclaim their power. But each attempt failed. My boundaries held, my discernment guided me, my conviction sustained me. Their traps became their own downfall, their manipulations their own exposure. Those who apologized found peace in their realization. They saw the emptiness of betrayal, the necessity of boundaries, the strength of intentional kindness. Their humility became their redemption. Those who resisted faced emptiness. Their manipulations failed, their entitlement crumbled, their revenge dissolved. They reaped what they had sown, and I remained unbroken. I whispered to my own heart, you are enough. You are strong. You will rise. Kindness was no longer blind. It was intentional, guarded, directed only to the worthy.